Ladies and gentlemen, one of the first things I want to do is tell you that in our system, the legal system, the state of Ohio always gets to go first. And when it comes to final argument, they get to go first and last. It's not because I don't want another shot at you, so to speak, but those are the rules. And the defense agrees to abide by that. The other thing I want to bring up real quick is that some of you heard a little bit about the case. There's been some publicity about that. And to some of you, we talked about, you've got to put that publicity out of your mind. And with some of you, you even agreed that not everything that you read in the newspaper is accurate. Now, for you history majors, you might remember this. Okay? Anybody ever remember President Dewey? Okay? This is 1948, and Chicago Sun-Times said, we're going to get the scoop on everybody. We're going to tell them that Dewey be true. Well, he didn't. That's the problem with believing everything you read or believing everything you hear. One of the reasons that there's 12 of you is so that you can use your collective memories to remember what happened and to remember it accurately. You're going to get some photos, you're going to get some documentation that you'll be able to take back into your palatial jury room back here, and that you will then decide. You don't have any minimum amount of time, you don't have any maximum time. You take your time. You talk amongst yourselves. Now, let's talk about it. Let's make one mistake, but not make this mistake here. The defense theory has nothing to do with shooting someone because they were on a stolen dirt bike. That's not the theory. The theory is that Mr. Knight, who sees his daughter, his only daughter, the daughter of his only grandson, in a dark street, and his son-in-law are trying to recoup, at least at the start in a peaceful manner, their stolen dirt bike. Now let's talk a little bit about Mr. Hunt. Mr. Knight is going to testify. He's going to testify probably last. That's going to be at the end of the week. We can't tell you exactly when people are going to testify. Some people take longer than others, some take shorter. It's kind of a guessing game. But you will hear from Mr. Knight. You will also hear from the son-in-law. You'll also hear from Michelle. You'll also hear from a few other people. Now, it is 1 year and 2 weeks ago that March 20th, it's somewhere in the 7 to 8 o'clock area, and Curtis Gill gets wind of the fact that he believes his stolen dirt bike that he bought for his son about a year earlier might be on the internet. So he looks on the internet and he goes, yeah, that's mine. And people will say, well, how do you know it's that? Mr. Gill put some custom work and parts onto that bike. So he tries himself to make contact. Doesn't get a response. He then finds out that this Justin Badgett is acting as a go-between, and I'll agree with Mr. Palmetto. He acts as a middleman. And at that point in time, Badgett sees the idea of making a couple of bucks. And so he's offered between $50 and $100 by Keith Johnson. Mr. Gill is told by Mr. Badgett, meet me over on the Leonardo or something like that. It's a street that's nearby. When Mr. Gill, by himself, unarmed, goes over there, doesn't have a lot of money, but he just wants to retrieve his son's stolen bike that's been gone for a year. Mr. Badgett will tell you things are fine. They have a nice little conversation, and the bike is supposed to be there. but it's not. And then all of a sudden, Mr. Badgett gets a phone call from Mr. Johnson. It says, hey, can't get the bike over there, bring it over here to Danby. Bring it over to this house on Danby. As it turns out, it's his uncle's, Mr. Sprague. The bike is kept in the back. So Mr. Badgett, in his little Civic, leads Mr. Gill, the son-in-law, at Mr. Johnson's urging over to Danby. Now, while this meeting with Justin Badgett and Mr. Johnson is occurring, Mr. Gill is on the phone to the Akron Police Department 10 times. He's calling all over the police department. Hey, send a cruiser over here. Just want to kind of referee things, make sure everything goes okay. And at first he's told, yeah, we'll send a cruiser over. And then he finds out somewhere along the line that, no, we sent the cruiser someplace else. So Mr. Gill continues on with Mr. Badgett, and they go over and they pull up on Danby. Mr. Badgett's car is in front. Mr. Gill parks his black Ford F-250 in front of 797, the house that you just saw earlier this morning. Okay, Danby. That's important. He parks it right in front of the house. Right in front. Keep that in mind, because later on when a witness testifies, that's going to become a key point. Then he's on the phone and he's trying to reach his wife, who's in the pickup truck that belongs to William Knight. William Knight, grandfather, father of Michelle, father-in-law of Curtis Gill, had been at the Gill residence. He'd come over that night. He comes over often. It's his only daughter, it's his only grandson. And he's told, hey, we're trying to get this dirt bike. How about bringing your truck over to help carry the bike away, not as part of some posse that's going to cause havoc over a dam? Why bring Mr. Hunt? Why bring Mr. Knight's truck? Because Mr. Gill had tools in the back of his truck, and they wanted Mr. Knight's truck to haul away the bike. That was the plan. There was no plan, there was no conspiracy that, hey, bring your gun, there's going to be trouble. As a matter of fact, you're going to hear testimony that the initial conversation with Badgett and Gill over at Badgett's house, the initial conversation with Mr. Gill and Mr. Johnson was friendly. Until Mr. Gill, after seeing the bike go up and down the street a couple times, pulling out it's like a flashlight on your smartphone. It's dark, I remember. It's almost 9 o'clock at night. And he's using that flashlight to check the serial number because he has one thing that hasn't been mentioned yet. He has the title. He has the title to that bike. He's checking with his flashlight to make sure the serial numbers on the bike match the serial numbers in his title. Mr. Badgett is standing there, and he goes, uh-oh. Mr. Gill says, that's my bike, here's my bike. That's when everything changed. That's when Mr. Johnson says, well, give me some money for this. And Mr. Gill says, why? It's my bike. You're trying to extort me for my own bike? And then Mr. Johnson starts the bike up, tries to get away. You're going to hear Mr. Badgett say, "Ew, that's his bike." Mr. Johnson wants some money. He doesn't want to give up a stolen bike simply because he wants some money. He says, "I want a couple $100 for this." And Mr. Gill says, "No, it's my bike." And then Mr. Gill reaches over the handlebars. Mr. Gill is standing in the front. The bike is here, right by the front wheel. He's reaching over the handlebars. He's trying to do one of two things. He's trying to reach the kill switch, and he's also trying to get under the motor, not so much to turn off the gas. He's trying to reach the spark plug. Mr. Gill knows about these bikes. He knows how they work. He knows how to stop them. Mr. Gill doesn't have a weapon. He roars away. He knocks Mr. Gill out of the way. You're going to see Mr. Gill's photos where his hand is all cut, bloody, and where his left shin is all ripped up. He's still got the scars from where the bike peg hits him as Mr. Johnson takes off. Mr. Johnson then heads down. He bounces off a car. There's two cars right across the street. He didn't see them there today. One's being worked on. The other is like a toolbox. He bounces off one of those cars. There's some paint transfer. He goes down a few yards. I'm not sure how much. But he's headed toward Eastwood. He's on a bike he's had for months. He knows how to ride these bikes. You're hear that testimony too. Why doesn't he keep going to Eastwood and go either way? No. He's mad now. He turns around on that bike, starts coming back up the street toward Curtis Gill, toward his daughter, and possibly Mr. Knight. Gill and Michelle Gill, they're found. Mr. Knight has acquired a couple months earlier his concealed carry permit. He's allowed to have it. The fast loader is an illusion. He did have the fast loader. They weren't used. What Mr. Knight sees in his mind is a loud dirt bike that's knocked his son-in-law down. His daughter is over in that area. It's dark out. It's noisy. What's he do? He fires a warning shot. He doesn't shoot right away at Mr. Johnson. He fires one warning shot. Then as the bike is coming up toward Michelle and Curtis, he fires a fatal shot. We know there's only 2 shots fired, mainly for 2 reasons. One, we know that a couple of witnesses are going to say they only heard 2 shots. Secondly, ballistics. The police have a weapon. Has 3 live rounds in the cylinder. It's a 5-shot revolver. There's 3 rounds in the cylinder, 2 spent shell casings. Michelle, has been on her smartphone. She's called the police. After the shooting, Mr. Knight takes the phone and says, he doesn't run away. He stands there, tells the dispatcher, I shot because I thought my family was going to get hurt or killed. I'm paraphrasing, but don't hear that. And then what's he do? He takes the gun. One of the reasons we pointed out the fire hydrant to you there on Danby is he does a responsible thing. He doesn't want, in his mind, bad guys get this gun. So he takes it, he tucks it right underneath the fire hydrant. And when the cops show up, they say, where's the gun? Right there. Doesn't hide, doesn't run. Here is a 63-year-old widower. His wife died about 2 years before. for construction all his life. Got one daughter, one grandson. That's not all. Leads a very simple life. His mind, he thinks he has to protect. One or two of the most precious things in his life. Really, the only things left in his life. A daughter who's also the mother of his grandson. The defense we talked to you about in Invoke Your Dear is self-defense. In Ohio, there is a component to that self-defense there. And that is defense of another, defense of others. And that can be anybody. That could be a family member, it could be a neighbor, it could be a stranger. It's what's in Mr. Knight's mind that is really crucial. It's not about, he doesn't care about a dirt bike. All he cares about is his daughter and his son. Ladies and gentlemen, normally in most criminal cases, the state of Ohio has this burden of proof. And which means they have to put on all this evidence, the defense doesn't have to put on a thing. You some. In this case, the law in Ohio says, if the defense is going to argue self-defense, we have a burden of proof. Not as strong as the state. Their burden is beyond a reasonable doubt. Our burden is a little bit less than that. In other words, it's more likely than not. That's called a preponderance. You're going to hear all that from Judge at the end of the case. She reads you the law. You folks are going to listen to everybody. Once you listen to the state, once you listen to all the witnesses, we are going to have witnesses too at the very end. What I want you to do is, though, is not make up your mind merely because the state goes first. Merely because the state has more witnesses. Merely because the state has numerous police officers. We have witnesses too. We have eyewitnesses. I'm going to ask you to give the defense the same courtesy that I know you gave the state and find William Knight not guilty. Thank you.